Okay, last of the Euripides plays. This one is called Hippolytus, and it's an interesting one. Hippolytus is a kind of a cool character. He is a very pious, like virgin boy, and he has no interest in women or marriage or sex. And this has made Aphrodite very mad. And it's not just that he holds that attitude, but he also openly scorns Aphrodite, and it's that attitude that's going to ultimately be his downfall. Aphrodite makes a plan to destroy him, and the plan is to make his stepmother, who happens to be the queen of Athens, to fall in love with him and cause a love triangle situation that will be quite fatal to Hippolytus. Now, Hippolytus, he is a faithful devotee to Artemis, who is a virgin huntress goddess, and he loves to go hunting and not have sex. That's kind of what he's all about. So, Aphrodite, she has her brother, I think. I'm not sure exactly the family relation, but Eros is a kind of like a Cupid-like fellow who strikes Phaedra, Hippolytus' stepmother, with love for him, and she's deeply in love with him. And she kind of explains her plan and says that she's going to get Hippolytus killed, and that unfortunately Phaedra is going to die in the process, but whatever. It's not a big deal to Aphrodite. The scene opens up with Aphrodite explaining her plan, and then Hippolytus comes in with his hunting party, and he's being scornful. There are statues of Aphrodite and Artemis, and he's paying all this praise to Artemis, and he's scornful to Aphrodite. And the older servant is trying to tell him that he shouldn't be disrespectful to any of the gods. He needs to be mindful of all of them, not just one of them. And he doesn't want to listen. And then they run off again and go hunting or whatever. After they leave, Phaedra comes in, and she's with her maid and servants, and the king, Theseus, he's away going to consult with an oracle. Phaedra is looking terrible, and everyone says she looks awful. She hasn't eaten in 3 days. Nobody knows what's wrong with her. She's gloomy. It's really bad. So her maidservant and her have a back and forth, and they talk, and Phaedra doesn't want to tell her secret, and then finally she lets it out and tells the whole thing about how she fell in love with Hippolytus, and she's basically trying to starve herself to death rather than shame herself or act dishonorably or shame her husband. She mentions that her family has been stricken with unnatural desires. One example is that her mother slept with a bull and made the Minotaur, so that's pretty bad. And then mentions her sister had some other kind of thing going on, so she's just the third one in the family line to be having some kind of unnatural sexual desires, and it's a curse, basically. Her maid, in one of the worst wingman moves of all time, says, "I got this. I'm going to go and I'll talk to Hippolytus. Don't worry about it." So she goes and finds Hippolytus, and she convinces him, like, "Hey, I've got a secret. You have to swear before the gods. You won't tell anyone what I'm about to reveal to you." And he makes the oath. And then she, in some fashion or other, tries to convince him to sleep with Phaedra. And he freaks out. He totally freaks out. And comes back onto the scene of the stage and confronts Phaedra and basically just rips her a new one. Talks about how messed up she is. Talks about how messed up all women are. How gross and icky sex is. How terrible everything is. And how he can't believe how improper all of this business is. And he sort of hints at threatening to tell his father, but they remind him that he swore an oath before the gods. And so he says, yeah, you got me there, and he leaves angry. Phaedra is just completely destroyed. She sees no future for herself at this point, and she decides the only option left for her is to get revenge on Hippolytus. She writes a suicide note that says he violated her, attaches it to her wrist, and then hangs herself. And at that point, King Theseus comes strolling back on the stage. He's just back from visiting an oracle, and he's like, "Where's my wife?" And he discovers that she's hung herself, and he's completely torn up about it, as you might expect. And then he sees the note, and he reads what happened, and is immediately stricken with rage towards Hippolytus. Now, Poseidon had granted Theseus 3 curses, apparently, and he can use them whenever he wants. And he immediately spends one of his curses on Hippolytus. And then Hippolytus shows up, not really knowing what's going on, and he's shocked to discover what Phaedra has done. And he doesn't understand what's happening at first, because he has no idea that she wrote that letter. Then Theseus confronts him and tells him, "Oh, you shared the bed of my wife, and what kind of a son are you?" and all of this accusation. Hippolytus never breaks his oath. He never tells about Phaedra. All that he does is deny that he ever did it. He swears he's still a virgin. He would never do something like that. And he's very pious and honoring of the gods. It disgusts King Theseus. He thinks he's a goody two-shoes. He's holier than thou. He thinks that he's putting up a front and pretending to be this godly man, and really he's just a dirtbag. And he tells him that. And he says that he's going to banish him from the land. Hippolytus points out, if I were you and someone had slept with my wife, I would kill them. And Theseus says, it's too good for you. I want you to be poor and wandering and suffering until you die. And sends him away. And Hippolytus is feeling sorry for himself, but he never tells what Phaedra did. And then, as he's preparing to leave, he's setting up his team of horses. And as he's riding along, it's not totally clear to me what happens here. The Poseidon curse kicks in. So this is how I imagined it, is like a wave, like a giant tidal wave sort of appears with a bull, some kind of spirit, or maybe water spirit bull creature, starts driving his team of horses, starts chasing them around, getting them to freak out and spook. And then eventually Hippolytus falls down and gets drugged by his horses across jagged rocks and gets all messed up and fatally wounded. Luckily, he survives a little bit longer, and in the meantime, the goddess Artemis appears to his father and explains to Theseus what really happened, and explains how he didn't give his son opportunity to explain himself and give it enough time to let the truth come out. And it was shameful for him to use one of his curses on his own son unjustly instead of using it on an enemy. And she mentioned that like Poseidon was not very happy about that, but he still carried out the curse, but he just wasn't happy about it. And Theseus is wrecked. He's like, oh my god, how could I do that? He can't believe his own actions. He can't believe his rashness. But they do decide that really it was Aphrodite's fault, and that was really the crux of it there. Servants bring Hippolytus, all wounded, back to Theseus at the end, and they're able to make up. Theseus tells him he understands that he didn't actually do it, and wishes that he could take his place in death. Hippolytus is really happy to see Artemis there, and he talks to her for a little bit. She mentions, though, that she's not allowed to see death. It's like a blight on her holiness to even witness death, so she has to leave because she can tell he's about to die. And right before he dies, he tells Theseus that he absolves him of any guilt for his death, and Theseus is rather grateful. And then Hippolytus dies, and Theseus is really sad and laments that the world has lost a really great person, which just a moment ago, he was tearing him down for, but realizing what actually happened, he recognized that Hippolytus was actually a pretty cool dude, even though he was all about virginity and hunting. He was still a really good guy overall. A man of moral character, I suppose. And that's the end of the play. I thought it was the most tragic in at least my modern English sense of the word tragic. When I think of tragedy, I think of something that is sad and unfortunate. And while all of these were, to some extent, all of these plays by Euripides were, I thought that this one was the most tragic because Hippolytus just totally didn't deserve this fate. He got really screwed over by everyone, by his own family, by the gods. Even Artemis said he was her favorite person, but she wasn't going to stop Aphrodite from destroying him because it's a thing amongst the gods. They kind of don't get in each other's way about stuff like that for fear of Zeus's retribution. The one, I don't know if it's a silver lining, Artemis does mention to Hippolytus before he dies that she's going to find one of Aphrodite's favorite humans and kill them. So I guess two wrongs make a right there. But yeah, that's it. It's pretty straightforward. It's just sad. It's sad what happens, and really Theseus gets the worst of it of anyone because his wife killed herself, tricked him into killing his own son, and then he finds out that she was the one who was unfaithful, at least in her heart. And so that's a lot to deal with. That's a bad day. It's a really bad day. So I'm going to give Hippolytus as the saddest of Euripides' plays for poor Theseus. Anyway, let me know what you think about this, and leave a comment. Till next time.